session, the midpoint Q&A session for the mentoring scheme. For those of you who don't know, can't remember, my name's Mark Allen. I'm a careers consultant and part of the mentoring team. In attendance, we have Rhiannon and Norma from the mentoring team as well, and also Kellyanne from the alumni department, who's going to say a few words about their work. This session, it's kind of, well, I'll just move on to the next slide. It's just a reminder of, from our perspective, of how the mentoring scheme is kind of structured and the timeline with that. We're looking at, we'd quite like to just draw your attention to a couple of things, really. Just if you are interested this year, and we mentioned this at the beginning of this this stream of mentoring, we've introduced a new mentoring pathways element for the mentees to do alongside their interactions with yourselves. And I'd just like to give you a few kind of stats about that. If I know that probably may not sound that exciting to a lot of you, but it's kind of interesting from our perspective, so I'll spend a minute or so on that. Kellyanne's going to come in and talk about the work that they're doing in the alumni office and things that you can get involved with if you're not involved with already. And then obviously one of the main reasons we'd like to we're running this session is for you to have any, or put forward any questions or concerns you may have, or any points or kind of I guess stories about what went well so far in your mentoring partnership. And so we'll have a bit of a Q&A at the end. We also have a number of mentors who've submitted questions who can't attend the session in advance, which we'll look at as well. If you, I mean, there's not that many people here today, of course, so if you have any questions at any stage, just shout out, really. Yeah, I hope that's okay. So without further ado, let's crack on, I guess. So where are we? Can I oh, I've got to take control of, is that you, Rhiannon? Are you in control? Can I take control of the, that's one thing. Like, I love all this technology, it's brilliant. You can talk to people all across the world in kind of real time. But there's always some issue with the presenter looking a bit like a supply geography teacher at school trying to work a VHS video. Here we go. Right, so hopefully I'm now in control. Okay. So just as a reminder, you probably know this already, the mentoring scheme's been it's been in action since November, and with an end goal of May. And the only reason we want to mention this at this time really is hopefully.
Sorry, Mark, I don't mean to stop you, but for me, the slide hasn't changed. I don't know if it has for anyone else.
No, it hasn't changed for me either.
Oh,
Thank you, Daniel.
This is disastrous. Supply geography teacher, here we go. Let's see.
Otherwise, if I take back control, I can click through them if you want.
Yeah, you take back control. Take back control.
I think that's probably best.
That line, okay? I'm glad we're recording this, by the way. Yes, so hopefully the timeline is. Can you see it? Magnificent.
I'm afraid not. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Brilliant. I mean, we're only supposed to be spending 15 seconds on this slide anyway, really, but hopefully you've had a few interactions with your mentor by now. And it's just a reminder for those of you who, most people were at Imperial relatively recently, that sometimes the mentors, the mentees, the students have had a sort of very busy period after Christmas with exams, and often that's where there's a bit of a lull in their interactions with mentors. So if you've experienced that, it could be due to that. This year in particular, because everybody's working remotely, what we've noticed in terms of careers work in general is that there was more of a lull than usual in students' interactions with us. And we think that that's because they're kind of a little bit more head down, concentrating on the course and this kind of thing. And so it wouldn't surprise me. I'd be interested to hear from mentors to find out if that affected their interactions in any way. But as of now, of the 24th of February, most students are moving into more practical elements of their course, more projects, labs, this kind of thing, and hopefully they will be engaging with you a bit more as from now. But as we move into kind of April and May again, it might be that they disappear again. I hope that kind of makes sense. Rhiannon, if you can move on to the if you have any questions or thoughts about that, just out of interest, because there's only a few people here. How are you finding your engagement with your students? If you want to kind of de-mic or up, what do you do? Mic up, that's right. If you want to turn on your mic or put something in the chat, that'd be great to know how it's kind of going from your perspective.
I can just say that whenever I've met with my mentee, they've been really engaged. However, I notice they tend to have long pauses between their engagement, and so if I send them a reminder email, I've done that once, they'll pop back in, we'll have a chat quite quickly. But if not, they actually, reached back out of their own volition last time, so that was really encouraging.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Danielle. I guess it could be quite unnerving from a mentor's perspective when they seem to be disappeared for a while. But I think, for kind of anecdotally, having talked to a few students on the scheme, I think it is the case that they really, or the ones I've spoken to, are really kind of keen and engaged, but just occasionally they have to focus on actually their academics. And but I think that it's still very much part of their thinking. So that's great. Okay. Anyone else want to come forth? There's always the...
Hi there, it's Lamevera here. So
Hey.
I've got two. They've been quite engaged as well, and they're really taking that mentee-led approach and trying to kind of schedule the meetings and sending the synopsis after every engagement. And yeah, we did have a bit of a struggle with the exams in January, but we found time slots that now work at the back end of the month, and so we do that. And yeah, so it's been really good, very enriching as well.
Oh, that's brilliant. So you got a lot out of it from your side as well. Yeah. Excellent. That's great to hear. Thank you very much for that. Any other thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah. Just to echo Lem's comments. I kind of get them to agree on the next meeting at the end of the current meeting we're having, and so and they've been quite good at keeping up with that. Yeah, I found that rather than kind of just saying, yeah, contact me for the next meeting, I just kind of do that, and they seem to be really engaged as well. So yeah, that's my feedback. Thank you.
I think that's a really good practice, actually, because obviously ultimately it's supposed to be, and it is, a student-led initiative, and they should be taking control of it. But sometimes, yeah, I think it's worth getting kind of contracting with them a little bit at the end of your meeting. When are we going to meet again? Just so that it's kind of locked in. Yeah, I think that's great practice. Yeah, excellent. Okay, well, we'll move forward a bit, and then we can have a bit of a chat about some other stuff later. I'm aware that you probably have busy schedules today. Just to say, as I mentioned earlier, we introduced this kind of mentoring pathways element of the scheme this year, and the idea behind that is, from our perspective, it can be quite once we set the scheme off and we pair you up and leave you to it, it can be difficult to kind of monitor activity and which students are engaging, which ones are getting the most out of it, and are any people sort of disappearing off the scheme without us knowing. And so the mentoring pathways, what that is, and you might remember, is that we set the students a kind of monthly task, a very brief monthly task, which is designed to they have to do it online through our online career management tool, Jobs Live, and it's to firstly so that we can monitor whether they're actually doing it and therefore engaged, but also is for other purposes as well. So the first is it October or November, they had to do a sort of reflective self-audit on how they felt about their own skills with regard to the workplace, or how they felt about elements of the recruitment process, like interviews or the like. And the idea was for them to, first of all, just think about that, but secondly, maybe give them some things that they might use in their interactions with you. And then that was in November. And in December, all they had to do was just note how their first meeting with you went, what they got out of it, what their goals that they discussed were, and when they were going to meet with you again. And since then, they've had to do this year a task where they've had to do a kind of commercial awareness exercise, where it's about finding out a little bit more about your organization, what the aims of the organization might be, how your role fits into it, what's going on in the industry in general that may be affecting your organization. Obviously, there's probably a lot going on there, what with pandemics and potentially Brexit if you're UK based and the like. And so it's kind of to inspire chat and thought with the students. But just to give you an idea of it, we've had real high engagement with it. We've got 153 mentees on the scheme. We started with 153, and we've had the first exercise, 147 of them did it, which is kind of very high. You're always going to get a couple of people who don't engage with something like this because they see it as kind of fluffy or something, and they don't, you know, kind of really go for it. But the first exercise, yeah, only 6 didn't. And then the January exercise on commercial awareness, we're kind of up to, I think we've still got, sometimes people are just doing it late. So there's some people who will do it and haven't done it yet. And we still had 130-ish engage with that. But again, from our side, it's just useful to see who is doing the exercise, and we're making some assumptions that they will still be engaging with you with that. So it's just something to think about, really. Looking forward, they're going to be doing some more exercises on how career ready they feel, what they feel they can bring to the workplace from an internship skill perspective, areas they'd like to develop, and this kind of thing. So they might be using that in their chats with you, or they may not. I suppose what I'm quite interested in, if possible, I wonder if any of the students have mentioned this to you at any stage, or whether it's just something they see as a task that they're doing and they have to fulfill in order to maintain their presence on the scheme. Are you aware of these exercises that they have to do? Got one nod, one shake of head. Okay.
No.
Yeah, is that a yes? Sorry, Mehdi.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. No, okay. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting from our perspective. But I suppose
I know my students mentioned it, but only in the sense that they haven't wanted to complete it. They've so that I only mention it just because I know that, you know, if I have a measurement that I want students to engage with, the feedback I tend to get is quite good because the students who are motivated to give feedback are the keen ones. And so my mentee dropped off for a bit and then replied that Pathways was something that he didn't really want to complete as much as he did the interaction.
Okay, yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. So actually seeing it as a bit of a barrier, a bit of a hurdle. Yeah, yeah. We'll have to think about that. This is definitely a sort of pilot year. Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
That's all right. I think there's something there about the fact that a lot of what we make them do is a little bit careersy, which often, and I don't want to sort of bang the drum for feeling unappreciated sometimes.
Oh, I bet. I love reflective activities. I create loads of them, and so trying to get students to engage with them is fine. You know, it's hard to get them to engage with something when you say it's good for you. They have to, you know, really want to do it.
Yeah, that's true. And maybe there's something there about how we can construct it to be something a bit more obviously tangibly useful to them. No, we'll have a few thoughts.
Just some feedback. I think it would be really good to keep, because kind of once you go through their CVs and cover letters and applications, then you're like, okay, you know, and if they don't come back with some kind of course-related work, then you're a bit sometimes stuck on what to focus on. But I think something like commercial awareness is really useful for their careers as well. So if somehow it can become more intertwined, then it would help us mentors as well, I'd say.
Yeah, if I knew more about it, I could have maybe, you know, encouraged him to do it and said, Hade, you know, come on, let's tell me more what you learned about commercial awareness. That would be cool.
That's kind of interesting, actually, because yeah, I suppose if to them it probably feels extremely separate from their interactions with you, really.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's something we can do about making it a little bit more intertwined, or yeah, part of the overall thing, making you more aware of it. So at least you. Yeah. That's really good. That's really good thinking. Thank you very much. We'll definitely take that on board. Perfect. Okay. If anyone's got any questions about pathways or anything else around this, let me know now. There's always this kind of awkward thing with teams, workshops, presentations, and sessions like this, that you kind of go, right, anything else? And then you have to give it 5 seconds. And then we can move. We'll move on. Rhiannon, if you can move on to the next slide. So Kellyanne is here from the Alumni office, and she's just going to do a little bit of a talk about the work that they do for alumni, or with alumni. And so I'm going to invite Kellyanne to come forward and go for it, really.
Cool, thanks, Mark. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I recognise a couple of you here this morning. Thank you to the careers team for inviting me to join this morning's session. I'm Kellyanne, Alumni Engagement Officer from the Alumni Relations team at Imperial. So we're part of the Advancement Division. So my role is around developing and supporting opportunities for alumni to engage with the college, mostly through volunteering. And the Alumni Mentoring Scheme is one of the programs that I support. So I'd like to start by saying on behalf of my team and the college, a huge thank you to you for volunteering as mentors. We really value your effort in helping us support students, and we appreciate you sharing your time and expertise. In the alumni team, we've been working to develop the Recent Graduates program. So that's kind of the continuation of support available once the students leave and they graduate. So there wasn't really much around that before, but we've been working on that. We now have a coaching program. We run masterclasses, webinars, workshops, career-related events, and we recently trialed a virtual speed mentoring event, which was interesting as well. Some of these resources might also be of interest to you as well as alumni, and we also have professional industry networks, regional alumni events, which are all online at the moment. So yesterday we had an event which should have been in Turkey, but it was online, but we had all the speakers from Turkey, which was really great. You can stay up to date with everything via our monthly e-newsletters, which you might already be getting. Also our website, social media. I've put some links on the slides there for our website and Plexus, the LinkedIn group, etc. If you have any specific questions around volunteering, or you're interested about what else you can get involved in, please drop me an email, and there'll also be a follow-up email after today's session with some more information. And yeah, I'm going to stick around for the Q&A, so I'm happy to answer any questions. And that's it from me, just a quick hello and a thank you. Back to you, Mark.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Kellyanne. Yeah, as she says, if you have any questions, just shout out, really. Either now or at the end. 5, 4. Perfect. All right, Rhiannon, do you want to move on to the next slide? And this is, I mean, this is now, really. This is, yeah. We slightly shuffled the order of the slides earlier. This mildly confused me. We've had a few mentors submit questions they want sort of discussed during the session and that they can watch back through the recording. But has anybody else got anything they want to ask or talk about today from their experience with their mentor? With their mentee, I should say, at this stage.
To get it started, I can mention one of the questions that, like you said, Mark, someone had submitted in advance. I couldn't decide if you were going to go for a thumbs up there or what was going to happen.
I kind of alternate between this. I've got that occasionally the double thumbs if it's really.
I wasn't 100% sure. So someone had asked, how do you establish and maintain a professional versus personal communication boundary? So I don't know if any other mentors have any thoughts on that, or if we have anything we want to share with that.
That's a really good question. How do you establish and maintain the sort of professional versus personal relationship? Yeah, can we tap into the yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. Are there any mentors who have any thoughts on that?
Well, I asked the question, so I have thoughts, but I'm unsure about them. So that's why I wanted to get everyone else's thoughts.
If anyone. Yeah, it's tricky. Can I ask Danielle what's challenging about it for you, just to kind of contextualize it a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I understand that this alumni mentoring program is mostly for career-driven purposes, right? Yet my mentee seems to have joined largely because they just wanted a more general mentor, which I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna fault them for that. But when I say general mentor, they also opened up a bit about, joining the mentor program because they were worried or concerned about social integration, and especially in times of COVID. And so these are all very not necessarily career-driven questions, and I'm happy to, listen, provide support, and I'm familiar with Imperial support services, so I can refer my mentee, but I never want to provide advice I'm not qualified to give, and I never want to encourage, I don't know, I just, but I also want to hear from them. I don't want to shut them down if they want to volunteer something they need help with. I don't want to say, no, you can only talk to me about your career aspirations. So that boundary is a bit hard sometimes for me to understand where it lies, and then how to deftly kind of push back more towards the professionalism side.
Yeah, interesting. It's a challenging one, really, because, yeah, like you say, this scheme is employability focused, but obviously some mentees are going to be keen to get your perspective on a number of different things just because because you are outside of the institution, because you're somebody who's probably trodden the path that they're looking to tread. It's tough, actually. I don't really have a fantastic. Obviously, we talk about, and like you say, you don't want to say I'm not happy to talk with you about non-career elements. Obviously, at the beginning of the whole interaction, we kind of we talk about contracting what you are and aren't happy. I suppose in my interactions with students, when they're asking me things outside of my comfort zone, which are things like if they talk about visa issues, which is a minefield, and I'm not qualified to talk about it, or about health challenges, maybe from there's a sort of spike of mental health and anxiety and this kind of thing. I think all you can do really is signpost people as best possible, and give advice to an extent, but with the preface, is that the word, of this is not an area I can only give you my own opinion on this, and you're going to have to seek this out further yourself because I'm not the expert here.
Yeah.
But maybe it's, that's my only thinking, really, just to kind of the small print from the very start. This is only my opinion.
And that's what I stick to, and that's why I try to say, look, dump all the grains of salt on it that you want. Hypertension be damned, and I'll provide you with a bunch of resources. You can use these. But yeah, and it's not necessarily, and that's the thing, is that a lot of these questions sometimes I find dance between just on that boundary of career related, but also say anxiety related to your future career. Does that fall more in the career category or more in the mental health category? So, I can try to steer it as best I can, but it's nice to get guidance to make sure that I'm not, to make sure that I'm, I don't know, interacting appropriately with my mentee.
Okay. I suppose there's also something there about the fact that if there's anything specific you want to discuss with us in person, you're more than welcome to do that, because obviously we're sort of talking about I think we're not going into masses of depth at the moment for obvious reasons, but we can talk about that, and very specifically if you want to chat at any stage, no problem.
Cool.
One of the
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Danielle. Really interesting, really challenging thing to think about, isn't it? Yeah, perfect. Okay, excellent. Anybody else got any thoughts or queries or good news stories or anything really they wanted to share? If not, I'll nod at Rhiannon and she'll bring out some topic.
No, I think it's just really nice when the mentees do all the hard work with applications, but it's nice when they come back with feedback that they've done well, that they've passed different interview stages, and it's a bit of a reminder of when we were applying as well and things like that. So that's really kind of to address the point you made about positive stories. So just wanted to share.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's really good when you kind of feel that you are assisting them, they are progressing. That's outstanding. It's really good to hear. Thank you so much for that. Excellent. Perfect. Rhiannon, do you want to throw something forward from the bank?
Yeah, sure. So someone asked, I have one student who wants help to make decisions and often asks what they should do, such as what undergraduate projects to choose. And I don't know what to make how to make decisions for them, as I can't tell them what they're interested in. So I try to point them to do a little research to make a decision. Is that the right approach? So about students asking maybe really direct questions rather than kind of more general mentoring discussions. How would we recommend mentors approach that?
Oh, that's interesting. So students actually just using their mentor as the decision maker rather than taking responsibility for themselves. I mean, I think that's interesting. So the person has tried to get them to go and do research and do it themselves to an extent. I think that probably is the right approach. I suppose there's something. I suppose actually one angle that you could have is to point out that you'd have to do this in a slightly diplomatic way, of course. The decision making is quite a key employability skill, and often people are asked about it during interview because you'll have to do that when in an internship or during the graduate job. And so there is something there, but obviously that might not empower the student to actually be able to make the decision. It just might put a bit of pressure on them. There are sources of, I guess, assistance that you might be able to refer them to. We have a small or a section on our website. If it's to do with career planning decision making, we have a section on our website, one of the drop down menus on career planning, within which there's a kind of self-audit values exercise kind of thing that students can do to help them think about what they want from a career and what they want from a role, which could be useful to point that. We can circulate that afterwards. So that's a starting point from a careers perspective. And so something else which I've pointed students to before as well. You may or may not know this, but Imperial subscribes to LinkedIn Learning, which is sort of online bank of thousands of online courses, really. Everything from kind of data modeling packages, learning about Python, but also more soft skills, and including decision making. There's a number of courses on there that can you could point to students. Well, they'd have to do a search and find a course that would help them with some decision-making models that they can use to assist them, I guess. I don't know, has anyone else got any other thoughts? Or you could just tell them to toss a coin, I guess. No worries. Well, I hope that sort of semi-answers that. But I think I think actually it's worth flagging up. The LinkedIn Learning resource is a fantastic resource for quite a lot of the areas that some students kind of. There's courses on everything from project management to leadership to influencing and negotiation, rapport building, all this kind of stuff, which can really. And it's not going to be the answer to everything, but it's a really good starting point if a student wants to develop in a certain area and they haven't had the opportunity to do so due to a pandemic or whatever else. So it's something to think about. Yeah. Any other queries or questions? Or Rhiannon, do you want to throw another one into the mix?
Yeah, not a problem at all. We've got a couple left. So why do mentees drop out of the program? Do they provide feedback to you? Is a question someone's asked, in sense of, obviously as the scheme's progressed from the beginning, we've had a few students withdrawn from the scheme due to a lack of engagement or making sure that we're making the most of mentors' time. So do we have any thoughts on, kind of generally speaking, why mentees may choose to withdraw from the scheme?
Okay. Well, I suppose we can all give a bit of insight to that to an extent. I think from my experience, mentees, sometimes so obviously this is a 7-month scheme or whatever it is, 8-month scheme. And it can be due to the fact that at the beginning of the year, students' workloads haven't ramped up to the extent that a very intense Imperial course can, and often we find that some students just lose sight of it, which is one of the reasons we're trying to keep them engaged with the pathways and the like. Sometimes I think students, and this is kind of an unsatisfying thing to say, but sometimes they get what they want from the scheme pretty early on. And drift away without really sort of acknowledging or letting us know that they want to withdraw from the scheme. or that they're not going to engage with it again, and that's not very satisfying, really. I suppose from the perspective of mentors, if your student isn't engaging, you can always, I mean, first of all, you can obviously drop them an email yourselves, but you can always speak to us, and we can give the student a nudge and try and ascertain whether they are still keen to be on the scheme, whether it is to do with the fact that they're bogged down and this kind of thing, and hopefully to be the catalyst to nudge them back into action. So there is that side of things, really. Ultimately, there's always some that disappear for personal reasons, but hopefully with that sort of approach, we should be able to push them back in the right direction, keep them engaged. Is there anything to kind of add to that, Rhiannon and Norma?
I think
no, you go, Norma. Every time.
There's that awkward 5-second rule thing. I think, Mark, what you touched on there is really true. Students will come into this with the best of intentions, and they'll be very motivated and excited, and then other things come up. They might be things that we can prepare them for, like you're going to reach points in the academic year where there's a really heavy workload. Communicate that to your mentor, so your mentor doesn't think you've disappeared off the face of the earth, but you're a professional in saying, my focus is somewhere else right now. That was kind of a big part of the rationale behind the pathway. As much as maybe a handful of students kind of resent doing those activities, they're a great way for us to know that the students are still there and that the alumni mentoring scheme is still a priority for them. So I think it is, maybe students just are not maybe skilled or not able to predict big changes or big fluctuations in their workload or other things that are going on. We have so many students outside of the UK at the moment, and they're doing their classes, they're doing everything remotely, which means that their living situations are different and maybe not what they've had in previous academic years. So I think there is so many changes for this year that's possibly leading to student disengagement at times as well. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Norman. Has anybody else got any thoughts, including mentors here? Maybe we could move on to another.
No, I just hi there, it's Lame again, just to jump in. I think the other thing I have done, because I've been a mentor, not just on the Imperial College scheme, but also with Society of Petroleum Engineers, where you do this e-mentoring and everyone is kind of remote, is to really set the expectations quite clear at the beginning. Before I say in the morning, at the beginning of the engagement, so you understand what their intentions are, what their expectations are, and you also set the expectations of what you can offer and where the boundaries are, because that way everyone's coming into the relationship with a very clear view, because sometimes the mentee has completely different expectations from what the mentor thought, and then the relationship doesn't progress as well as it could. And so setting the scene pretty early before anything else, I think it's one of the key success factors in managing this kind of remote mentoring relationship. And also, with my mentees, for example, when one of them had really big exams in January, so she emailed and said, I'm going to be preparing for exams, and I said, that's fine. Let's circle back at the end of the month. And so, just kind of having that open communication, setting the boundaries, having clear expectations and understanding of what each other is trying to get out of the relationship is quite a good skill and tip to have. Yeah.
That's excellent. Thanks, Lame. So it's kind of, agreeing expectations or discussing them rather, and having more of a structure and keeping communication. Yeah, that's brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you.
If I can tag on to that, I completely agree that expectation setting is really helpful to kind of keep track of where, at least in my case, where my mentees' interest and focus has been throughout throughout our meetings. At first, it may have been, very career driven, or it may have been, curious about how, for help with their masters and different entrepreneurship activities related to that. But every time we meet, I do try to get a little bit of an expectation setting, okay, from our last meeting, we did this. Now, what do you expect from this meeting, and what would you like going forward? And it helps me keep track of how their, interests have shifted throughout.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks very much, both of you. Great. Okay. I was just thinking at this stage, so recently I say we, Norma and Rhiannon ran a midway event for the students on the program, and I wondered if Norma, if you wanted to feedback some of the things that they've been coming out with, it might be quite interesting to the
yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was kind of two main trends that kind of came out from those sessions, asked in slightly different ways, but the gist was pretty similar across the board. So the students are quite concerned about professionalism and how they come across. So we had a number of questions around the topic of how long should I wait before chasing my mentor. So if I've sent an email and my mentor hasn't responded, how long do I wait before sending a follow-up, and what should that follow-up look like? So it'd actually be really interesting to hear from the mentors here, what kind of a timescale do you think is appropriate for a mentee to send you a polite follow-up that says something like, you're very busy, and I know you're very busy, but you possibly missed my last email. Just wanted to get this at the top of your inbox again, kind of thing. But it would be great to hear from the mentors directly what kind of a timescale would be appropriate, so that we can maybe settle on an average and make sure that we're giving the students the right advice on that. So that was kind of the first one. So I'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah. Any thoughts?
If it's more urgent, with 3 days is fine, but if it's a bit more of a longer term request, then a week, a working week, 5 days.
Okay, that's good. We've kind of been saying maybe 10 days, so that's good. Actually, Danielle, just to pick up on something that you've said there, we really encourage the mentees not to put the mentors under pressure and expect a very quick reply with things. There are other services and supports that do exist for them. The career service, for example, if they're really stressed about something, they can book in with somebody. So we hope that the mentors never feel like you're under pressure to respond as soon as something comes in. But that's good to kind of get your timescales on that, on what's appropriate.
Yeah, thank you. We very much appreciate that you do this in your own time. Really.
Very much.
And you don't have to do it. And so I think that's really useful. Thank you. So any other questions that came out of that midway point?
Yeah, the other kind of big thing, again in a couple of different formats, but one of the main themes was how to keep the mentorship going when perhaps the mentees' career interests have changed. Maybe as they've learned more, they've perhaps found that it's not exactly what they want to do, or perhaps they've discovered something else through something else, and they're maybe exploring a different direction. But how do they keep the mentorship going? Because they've signed up for this period up to May 2021. And if their interests change, how do they continue to engage with their mentor in an authentic way? So that's another big one.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can ask the mentors to respond to that if they want. I've got my own opinions. Anybody got any thoughts? What would you want to see from your mentee if they suddenly decided they didn't want to follow the career path that you were in, and that was the initial reason that they signed up? What do you think?
Sorry. So yeah, Mehdi speaking. I'd say there's just communicating. I mean, some of us work in large integrated companies and things like that, so we can always try and reach out to colleagues or networks to try and help that way, at least as a first point. But yeah, they should just communicate it, feel comfortable to do so. Yeah, thank you.
That's got to be right, isn't it? Thanks, Mehdi. That's got to be right, isn't it? Because ultimately, you still have something to offer as mentors, don't you? You've got experience. You can offer advice. You can, like you said, if you do have a network, you can point them towards. That's super awesome. That's above and beyond. That's great. But yeah, I think there's always got to be something. But communication is key. Is the message to go back to the students, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and if we can't help, we'd say it, and then that would help them to take that next step, maybe reach back out to you or whatever. But as long as they communicate it, then yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much. That's great. Perfect. Anything else, Norma?
Those were kind of the main things that really came out from the students. It's about the professionalism and how they look and how to handle it if the direction changes throughout. So those are kind of the themes at the midway point for the students.
Mm-hmm. brilliant. I hope you found that kind of useful, mentors. Anybody? So I don't want to kind of drag out this sort of Q&A if just for the sake of it. But has anybody got any points or queries they've still got that they want to throw out there, or Rhiannon, if you got any last points that came out of the?
There was one last one. If it's really directed at mentors, to be honest, and I think it's a very general kind of inquiry in terms of. I'm curious how other mentors engage with their mentees and what their experiences are. I think, to be fair, to some extent, we've actually covered that throughout the duration of today, but just to make sure no one feels like their question wasn't asked. If anyone has any thoughts in terms of how you engage with your mentor, I don't know if that's in what kind of platforms you use, or whether you rely on emails or kind of video communication. If any mentors want to kind of share again any more thoughts, that would be really helpful.
This is Lame, happy to share. So we use Zoom. And then in between emails. So for the scheduling, or if we need to reschedule, and also for the synopsis as well. So after every engagement, they go away, and it could take a few days or a couple of weeks, but we've got some time between each engagement anyway to get across that synopsis. So I do insist that they type it out and send it, so that at least we have it. And also it's a nice way to kind of reflect, how the journey is going, and also measure some level of success. So we found that, because I found it useful when I was doing the SPE mentoring, it's just nice to kind of document each meeting and have them do it. It gives them that sense of ownership. And so my two mentees have, been quite good at doing that. And so we use Zoom platform, because I think video call kind of brings a bit more face-to-facey instead of a phone call. And so we that's working for us. In terms of what else do we do, I did have a question actually from one of my mentees beyond the official timeline. So he's quite keen to continue to have a conversation, and I did say, well, that's fine, I don't have a problem with it. It's once a month, half an hour, so I can offer you that till the end of the year, just to make sure you get to the point, in case at the end of May, if you haven't kind of achieved all the things you want to achieve, then I'm more than happy to just carry on till the end of the year, just to make sure that the goals are met, and he feels like he got something complete out of the program. So that's just really where we are at.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Lana. That's great, and that's really kind of you as well to agree to kind of extend that relationship. I know that that's something that does happen. Obviously, we from an administrative perspective, you kind of on your own there, but well, we're still there for any if you have any worries about it. But that's brilliant. Thanks so much for that. Yeah, great. Perfect. And anything else to add at this stage? Okay.
This is Ross. I had an additional question. Sorry about any background noise. In terms of sort of the end of the program, the mentees giving any feedback, how often does that happen, and are they encouraged to do it? And are they also encouraged to give feedback about us as well? I've asked sort of personally the mentees sort of what they thought about me and how I sort of handled their questions or how I did, but maybe they're too shy or maybe not as forward and want to kind of tell me personally. But it would be nice to know, what I've been doing well or haven't been doing well, and it's just something I can look to improve on in the future.
That's really interesting. A really great question, actually. We certainly asked them for feedback in general. Rhiannon and I'll be honest, I've utterly forgotten exactly what we asked them for feedback on. Do we ask them? And that is, if not, we could facilitate that, I guess. Can we add a question?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, so we do ask mentees for feedback at the end of the scheme. In previous years, we have asked them if they want to kind of give any thoughts in terms of how they found their mentorship, and specifically maybe their mentor. And then we ask students if they're happy for that to be shared with their mentor. So for mentors perhaps to have more than one mentee, it's unlikely that kind of anonymous mentor feedback would really identify who that person was. But for ones that maybe just have a one-on-one relationship, sometimes, like you say, mentees might be a little bit shy in terms of, giving kind of constructive criticism or perhaps what they expected from the scheme. But yeah, definitely, like I say, it's not something we necessarily can guarantee, but more than happy to try and facilitate that. Norma, I don't know from the student side if you have any other thoughts on that.
No, I mean it's always something we request. We're looking to get the student input into this, especially this year as that pathway activities feature is new. So we're trying to work with the students kind of collaboratively to get their thoughts and feedback on the overall structure of the program, which does include, of course, their interactions with their mentor. I think, as Rhiannon said, we can't guarantee that a student will give us that feedback or whether they will consent to that being shared. But absolutely, if it's something that's important to the mentors, then we can absolutely look to facilitate that.
I hope that's okay, Ross. I hope that's yeah, that's hopefully useful. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to go for the awkward 5. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. The next slide, just to say at this stage, a couple of things really. First of all, to the mentors, thanks for attending today, and thanks again for those of you who are here and for those of you watching this via the recording. Thanks again for giving your time to this scheme. The students find it so valuable, and we certainly appreciate it. And I'm glad to hear that from a few of you today that it's going well from your perspective. So thank you. Thanks for Kellyanne for coming along and talking about the alumni office and their work, and again we'll circulate the slides, and so if you want to talk to them or contact them, obviously they have their own website as well of course, but you'll be able to do it through the links on our slides. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much again for your time today, and if you have any queries at any stage, give us a shout. But yeah, thanks and take care, and I'm going to stop recording.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lovely to meet all of you. Take care. Have a good day.
Take care. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Bye.
you.